Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise to get you truly well informed. Today, we're revealing a hidden lever for your well-being that, well, many of us grapple with daily, those energy slumps, stubborn weight, or that confusing feeling after a meal. This isn't just about diet, really. It's about understanding the silent language your food speaks to your body, specifically through something called the glycemic index. This deep dive is your shortcut to mastering a critical yet often misunderstood topic.
Absolutely. And our mission today is, well, to pull back the curtain on precisely that, to unpack the fascinating science behind how different foods affect your body and, crucially, your blood sugar. We want to show you how you can use this knowledge as a powerful, practical tool for better health. It's a concept that really emerged back in the late 20th century, specifically the 1980s in Canada. That's when researchers first observed, these distinct elevations in blood sugar in response to different carbohydrates. That pivotal observation really sparked this entire field of study.
Okay, so when we talk about the glycemic index, or GI, we're talking about a measure of something pretty crucial, aren't we? How would you define its core function in simple terms for everyone listening?
Yeah, at its core, the GI simply measures how much a specific food elevates your blood sugar, what we call glycemia. Now, when most people think of carbohydrates, their minds immediately jump to things like, sugar, white bread, pasta, cookies.
Right, the usual suspects.
Exactly, the stuff people commonly call carbs. But it's really important to remember that this broad category also includes the carbs found naturally in fruits, vegetables, and legumes, too.
That's a really good distinction to make. And to truly get the GI, it sounds like we need to maybe get a little bit technical for just a moment. How are these carbohydrates actually structured?
We can think of carbs as chains. They're made up of simple sugar units, which we call monosaccharides. The three main ones are glucose, fructose, and galactose. And in our diets, we mostly encounter three main types. There's a common table sugar, sucrose, which is basically a glucose plus a fructose unit. Then there's milk sugar, lactose, which is glucose and galactose. And then starch or maltose. Those are longer chains made entirely of glucose units. Understanding these basic structures is, well, pretty key to how our bodies process them. There are others too, like glycogen, pectins, but those three are the main dietary ones.
Okay, so we've eaten a food rich in these carb chains. What happens next? Walk us through that journey. My understanding is digestion starts, like way before the food even hits your stomach, right there in your mouth.
Absolutely, yeah. The journey begins with an enzyme in your saliva called amylase. You can think of amylase as tiny scissors that start snipping those long carbohydrate chains into smaller bits right there.
Okay.
That partially digested food then travels down to the stomach. More amylase and gastric juices continue the breakdown, fragmenting it further. Finally, it reaches the small intestine. And that's where even more specialized enzymes come into play. They break the food down until it reaches those simple monosaccharide units we just talked about. Glucose, fructose, galactose.
The basic building blocks.
Exactly. Those are the units small enough to be absorbed directly into your bloodstream.
And what's fascinating here, I think, is what happens right as those monosaccharides hit the bloodstream.
That's it. As these simple sugars enter your bloodstream, your blood sugar, your glycemia naturally starts to rise. This rise then triggers your pancreas to secrete insulin. Insulin acts like a key, basically. It unlocks your cells to allow those sugars to move out of the blood and be delivered to your cells for vital functions, like energy, or maybe stored for later use.
So we understand the mechanics now, the digestion, the insulin response. But what happens if we eat a high GI food versus a low GI food? I remember back in my college days, right? I could grab a sugary donut for breakfast, feel amazing for an hour, and then just crash hard right before my afternoon lecture. Is that exactly what you're describing here, that kind of feeling?
That is precisely the roller coaster I'm talking about, yes. When you eat a high GI food, that blood sugar elevation is sudden and pronounced. It creates a sharp peak of glycemia.
Right.
This causes an equally sudden and intense burst of insulin, which then rapidly removes sugar from your blood. And what happens after such a sharp peak? An equally sharp, intense valley, a deep drop in glycemia. It really is a physical, mental, and emotional roller coaster. Now, contrast this with low or medium GI foods like many vegetables, whole grains, some fruits. With these, the blood sugar elevation is much smoother, much gentler.
Okay.
This leads to a less pronounced insulin secretion. So instead of that dramatic peak and valley, you get a gentle, healthier wave, sort of an undulation around more stable blood sugar values.
I can almost feel that sharp peak and deep valley just hearing you describe it. So it's clearly not just about energy levels and mood then, is it?
Yeah.
What are the longer-term implications of constantly riding that high GI roller coaster?
Oh, the implications are far more profound, yeah. Firstly, thinking about weight control, it's really not just about counting calories. The overall glycemic index of your meal fundamentally regulates your weight. High GI foods clearly favor weight gain.
Okay, that's big.
It is. And beyond that, consistently consuming high GI foods creates this sort of overload. It's extra work for your pancreas. Over time, this can potentially exhaust its capacity for insulin secretion, which can lead to insulin resistance and ultimately type 2 diabetes.
That's already quite impactful. But you mentioned something earlier, something even more maybe surprising. Silent inflammation. Can you just touch on that again? So we could be doing damage without even realizing it.
That's often the crucial aha moment for
Yeah.
people, yes. High GI foods also contribute to what's called silent inflammation. This isn't the obvious painful inflammation you get from, say, bumping your arm,
Yeah.
where it swells, gets red, hot, aches.
Right, the kind you feel.
Exactly. This is subtle. It's symptomless inflammation that we don't feel directly. Yet, it's now understood to be the underlying basis for many major chronic diseases, things like cardiovascular diseases, various degenerative diseases, dementias like Alzheimer's, even cancer. So yes, you could absolutely be contributing to long-term issues without any immediate symptoms.
Wow, okay. And finally, that physical, mental, and emotional roller coaster we talked about. That feeling isn't just like in your head, it's a real, tangible consequence of what you're eating.
Absolutely.
That initial surge of energy, feeling potent, lucid, maybe even euphoric, is often followed by that deep valley of fatigue, dizziness, poor mental focus, a bad mood, or even sadness.
Precisely. And to help you navigate this, I strongly recommend consulting glycemic index lists. You can find many reliable ones online quite easily. Keep them handy, in your kitchen, on the fridge, maybe on your phone for when you're shopping. These lists will help you choose foods more wisely. Generally speaking, high GI foods include, well, the fast sugars, sweets, sodas, candies, white breads, refined flours, pasta.
The usual suspects again.
Yeah. And potatoes, especially when they're baked really crispy with oil or fried like French fries, those can have one of the highest GIs.
Right.
Things like nougat, quince paste, dehydrated fruits also tend to fall into this high category. Medium GI foods tend to be some fruits and vegetables, while low GI foods are typically legumes and certain other vegetables and fruits. But there's variety within each group, of course.
That makes it much more concrete. Okay. So if the what and the why of GI are clear, the burning question for everyone listening is how do we actually use this? And it turns out the power is literally in your hands, right? With 4 maybe surprising factors that let you modulate your meals.
Indeed. These 4 factors give you significant power to actually reduce the GI of your meals. It's quite empowering. The first one is fiber content. Fiber essentially slows down the whole digestive process.
Okay.
And by doing that, it cushions that blood sugar elevation, makes it less steep. For example, whole wheat bread has a significantly lower GI than white bread, or brown rice, or basmati rice even. They have lower GIs than standard white rice because of the fiber.
That makes intuitive sense. Less processing, more fiber. What's the second factor?
The second factor is food structure, the physical form of the food. When food is whole, it's just harder for your body to break down quickly.
Right. More work involved.
Exactly. So this leads to a slower digestive process and a more attenuated, a gentler blood sugar rise. This is why, for instance, eating whole grain kernels, like actual groats, has a lower GI than cereal flakes or flour made from those same grains.
Ah, okay.
And similarly, a whole piece of fruit has a much lower GI than, say, fruit juice or mashed fruit purees made from the exact same fruit.
So a general rule of thumb then is kind of less processed is more friendly to our blood sugar.
That's a great way to put it, exactly. The third factor is the cooking method. This one surprises a lot of people. Cooking essentially pre-digests the food for us to some extent.
Right, softens it up.
It does. So if you cook a grain or a potato or even some fruits, they're already partially broken down, and your blood sugar will tend to elevate more quickly as a result. This is particularly interesting with potatoes, which, many of us eat regularly.
Definitely.
Their GI changes dramatically based on how they're cooked. Those baked potatoes prepared really crispy with oil, a low pobre style, or French fries, very high GI.
Okay.
Boiled potatoes, however, have a notably lower GI. And interestingly, if you boil potatoes with the skin on, their GI is even lower than if you boil them peeled.
Wow, that's actually a game changer for my potato habit. I had no idea something so simple could make such a difference.
Okay.
And the fourth factor.
The fourth crucial factor is combination with protein and fat. Protein and fat significantly slow down the absorption of sugar into the blood.
Ah, they act like brakes.
Sort of, yeah. They effectively reduce the overall GI of the entire meal. This is why it's incredibly beneficial to try and include all three elements: a good quality carbohydrate, a good quality protein, and a healthy fat in pretty much every meal you prepare.
Makes sense.
For instance, when you're eating meat or fish, try to accompany it with vegetables. Cooked vegetables are often better digestion-wise for dinner. Maybe fresh in a salad works well at midday. And always dress them. A good drizzle of olive oil, maybe coconut oil, or add some seeds like chia or flax. Those provide both healthy fat and fiber, plus lots of other nutrients.
Okay.
Another great example for a snack: a piece of fruit combined with a handful of nuts is ideal. That combination sustains your energy, it reduces your appetite, and helps control your weight much better than just eating the fruit alone.
Right, because the fat and protein slow down the fruit sugar rush.
Precisely. And this applies even to things like, say, having a beer or a glass of wine.
Hmm.
If you have it with food, like during an aperitif with some nuts or olives, it's less impactful on weight gain than consuming it completely alone on an empty stomach, partly because of this combination effect slowing absorption.
So let's bring this all together. What does this really mean for you, the listener? Understanding the glycemic index and these four key factors, fiber, structure, cooking, combination, it really gives you a truly powerful and practical tool. A tool for controlling your weight, sure, but also improving your aesthetics, enhancing your overall well-being, and fundamentally boosting your long-term health. It's about making smarter, more informed choices, not necessarily fewer ones, right?
Exactly. Which I think raises an important question for you to consider as you go about your week. How could a simple shift, maybe just how you combine foods at lunch, or even just how you choose to cook a common ingredient like a potato for dinner, how could that profoundly impact your daily energy levels, your mood, and ultimately your long-term health?
Yeah.
Don't just take our word for it. Actively explore those GI lists we mentioned. Experiment with these combinations in your own kitchen. Observe the real difference in how you feel. That's the true power of this knowledge, unlocked and put into practice.